Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to dive into something that I think a lot of you can relate to, especially if you're as into tennis as we are. We're talking about, working smarter, not harder to improve your game.
Absolutely.
We've got some really interesting articles about this and
Mhm.
some really fascinating ideas to unpack. So, like right off the bat, one of the things that jumped out at me was this concept of diminishing returns. Have you heard of this, like in relation to tennis?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's something that I talk to my athletes about all the time.
Okay, so for those of us who, maybe haven't encountered this term before, break it down for us. What is it?
So, diminishing returns basically means that at a certain point, putting in more effort, like on the court, practicing more, doesn't necessarily equal amount of improvement in your game.
Right.
Like you might hit a plateau where you're just kind of like spinning your
Yeah,
wheel.
I've totally been there. You're like putting in the hours, but you don't feel like you're getting any better. It's almost like you're just reinforcing bad habits at a certain point.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to work smarter, not just harder. And that's where, this idea of mental training comes in.
Okay, so this is what I'm really interested in because I feel like when we think about training, we immediately go to the physical,
Mm.
right? Like drills, footwork, that kind of thing. But the mental game, that's huge too, right?
Huge. Absolutely. And it's often overlooked. Yeah. People think like you just get out there and you play and you should be mentally tough, but it's a skill.
So how do you actually train your brain for tennis?
Well, there are a bunch of techniques you can use. One that I find really helpful for my athletes is visualization. So actually imagining yourself playing your best game, feeling confident, hitting those winners. It sounds kind of hokey, but it actually works.
So it's like you're creating that positive self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Exactly. You're training your mind to believe in your abilities and perform at your best, even under pressure.
That's amazing. And speaking of pressure, I know I personally struggle with nerves on the court. Like if I'm in a tight match, my heart starts racing and I totally lose focus. Any advice for dealing with that?
Definitely. Mindfulness can be really helpful for that. Just taking a few seconds to like center yourself, focus on your breath, become aware of your body and your thoughts without judgment. It helps quiet that inner critic that can sabotage your game.
Okay, so we've got visualization, mindfulness. These all sound like great tools. But honestly, one thing I've always struggled with is time management. Just finding the time for everything. And the article mentioned that, surprisingly, time management is actually a mental skill.
Yeah, it might sound weird, but it totally is. Because, like, to manage your time effectively, you need focus.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
You need discipline. You need to be able to prioritize. And those are all, like, mental muscles that you can strengthen.
That's so interesting. So instead of just squeezing in practice whenever I can, I should actually sit down and like plan out my week.
Exactly. Having a schedule, even if it's just a simple one written down, can make a huge difference. It helps you prioritize your tennis goals and make sure you're making the most of your practice time.
It's like having a game plan for your training.
Exactly.
I love that. And, it's funny because the article actually mentions Emma Raducanu, who's obviously like a tennis superstar.
Hmm.
And even she talks about how she had to work smarter, not just harder.
Yeah, she's talked about how she used to think that more time on the court automatically equaled better results. But she realized that it's not just about quantity, it's about quality.
That's so inspiring to hear, even for us, amateur players.
Mhm.
So as we wrap up here, what's like one key takeaway that you really want our listeners to remember about working smarter, not harder?
I'd say the most important thing is to be intentional with your training. Whether it's physical or mental, have a plan, set goals, and don't be afraid to experiment to find what works best for you.
Love it. So to all our listeners out there, what's one mental skill you're going to focus on improving this week? Think about it and let us know. We'll be back next time with another deep dive.
See that?